Are all white people racist?
100%. How can you be a white South African and not be racist? And I don't mean that in the way of you necessarily consciously think that black people are inferior. I mean that there is just no way that you could have been born into this society without internalizing racist assumptions. But let's not make that the end of the conversation. It's not racist, it's just a fact. Let's not make that the end of the conversation. Let's say, yes, sure, we are all racist, and what are we going to do about it? Let's move on. Let's not make that the final insult.
I think what Elisa was trying to raise earlier about, PJ's song, yes, struggle hero, or you fought and whatever. I think the problem is that we forget that white people today have the option of tapping out, right? So you can sing Jabulani and you can dance, but then you can also remove yourself from the lived experiences of the culture that you're trying. I'm sorry, I'm speaking from the culture that you're trying to represent. That doesn't make you a bad person. It's just the truth of the situation. And I think in South Africa, this is really what the conversation needs to be about. We need to talk about, why did apartheid end? Why did colonialism end? It didn't end because people's perspectives and behavior changed. It ended because it was expensive. It ended because white people couldn't travel anymore. It ended because they couldn't go and play sport, because entertainment for white people was over. Therefore, they needed to bring equality. That's not, we need to be honest.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. This is Evans Rayola. Guys, thank you so much for tuning to watch this video. Guys, you know how difficult it has been over the years to just talk about racism, to have a sit down, between different races and just be able to talk about racism. But there is this platform in South Africa known as the Big Debate, which has made it possible. Many a times when the white man, is told about how racist he is, many a times they say that the black folk, is trying to play the race card. Many a times they say that the black folk is trying to exaggerate the situation. That has made the black folk to always shy away from this conversation. And many a times this conversation has always been that weird conversation. But in South Africa, in the platform known as the Big Debate, they speak about these issues clearly without being afraid of anything. So guys, I want you to watch this video, of this South African lady, black lady, trying to talk to other white folks and just trying to be able to understand each other on issues of racism, the apartheid and all this stuff. This is an eye-opener to all other countries in the world to start normalizing the conversation of race, because it's very important when it means we are intentional, to find a solution to the problem of racism. So guys, I want you to watch this video. Once it's done, we will get back and do a critical analysis about the same. Let's watch this together, guys.
So, Elisa, why are you so obsessed with whiteness? Why can't we be preoccupied with being successful in business, in the arts? I mean, like Ferial Hafaji says in her book, what if there were no white people?
I think for me, I'm not obsessed with whiteness. I'm obsessed with black liberation. And I'm obsessed with the rebuilding of black humanity in this country. So to read my obsession with black liberation as an obsession with whiteness, I think is incorrect, because we live in a society that is very dishonest about the kind of power, the kind of brutality that white bodies, even without doing anything, hold. And so for PJ Powers to come and sing a very mediocre song and make money over the years about using Zulu culture and using cultural appropriation is exact kinds of power that white people hold in this space. And there's a generation of young people who are sitting, some of them sitting in this audience, who are moving away from the lies of Mandela to say, actually, we want the land at this point in time.
Woo! Good job. Peter, I'll give you the honor of replying. Yeah.
With regards to Jabulani, in 1982, it was probably before you were born, I went into Soweto with a rock song called You're So Good to Me. It didn't have a black note on it. I think some of the older people may remember it. It was You're So Good to Me. It was a rock song that suddenly charted on the Radio Zulu charts. So if you think that I adapted black culture, that is not the case at all. In fact, the black people put me on their wings, okay, and carried me and have ever since. It is something I'm incredibly proud and grateful for. And it hurts me to see somebody that I have fought for my entire life, okay, in my own way, in what I can do. I'm not a politician, I'm not a statistician, I can't do any of those things. What I can do is talk out about whinging whites that we have in this country. And I will always have loved and always will love this country. The book that I've written is dedicated to the people of Soweto.
All right.
There you have it.
I call you a rainbowist. I think we all used to be rainbowists at some point or other, at the start of our democracy.
Yes.
But a lot's changed. A lot has happened.
The question is
Are your
why?
ideas still relevant?
Absolutely, because the Constitution is still relevant, whether we like it or not. And we all remember what it was like in 1994 and the whole concept of the Rainbow Nation. Why do we have this debate today? What changed? I believe that leaders should set the tone. And President Mandela and other leaders at the time set a certain tone in terms of why and how we should take South Africa forward.
All right. Rebecca, are all white people racist?
100%. How can you be a white South African and not be racist? And I don't mean that in the way of you necessarily consciously think that black people are inferior. I mean that there is just no way that you could have been born into this society without internalizing racist assumptions. But let's not make that the end of the conversation. It's not racist, it's just a fact. Let's not make that the end of the conversation. Let's say, yes, sure, we are all racist, and what are we going to do about it? Let's move on. Let's not make that the final insult.
Monique, do you agree with Rebecca saying 100%?
No,
all white people are
I
racist?
disagree with what she's saying. I think that whiteness and white privilege has become this buzzword that you hear all the time. But actually, it's a way to silence anyone that is not of color. What she was basically saying is, if you are a white person, you are racist just because you are white, without any evidence. I am not a racist person. I respect all people. I respect black people, white people, colored people. So I feel it's very offensive to say that all white people are racist. It's just not true. And I think that to make whiteness the enemy is easier to fight than to fight the crippling corruption, to fight unemployment, to fight, to fight the wealth gap, because the political leaders that we have cannot fight that stuff. They don't have the skills to fight that, and then they make race the problem.
Ooh, Sarah.
Sorry.
You look like you totally disagree here.
I do totally disagree. I think that I'm a little bit torn because I really want to reply to a bit of what Monique has said, but I also really don't want this conversation where we have a potential to disrupt whiteness to be centered around the type of whiteness that is displaying the racism that you say that you aren't. I mean, the comment about people not having skills is inherently racist.
Yeah.
Just to point out one thing. I think we should have the conversation about how to give back the land. I think that's what we should do.
Do you agree with Monique?
Well, I think that what we need to look at is an element of complicity, Mr. Chaba. And I think that fundamentally what we haven't unpacked, we've gone through the TRC process, and what we haven't understood is how white people have benefited firstly from apartheid, and secondly how a particular group of white people in this country have become fabulously rich off the back of apartheid. Now, I think that white complicity, overall, we can look at, and the responsibility to promote social justice in our country, firstly. But when we have two families, there are two families in this country, the Oppenheimers and the Ruperts, names we don't necessarily all know, who have as much wealth as 50% of our people. It's an extraordinary crime. We should call it nothing else. That must be challenged. It's a crime against our humanity, and it's the humanity of 50 million people in this country. That's precisely where we need to focus at and say, how did you make your money during apartheid? How did you build those networks? And how do you retain and entrench your power in the last 20 years? And quite clearly, no one is disrupting that power fundamentally.
All right, Loveland.
I think what Elisa was trying to raise earlier about, PJ's song, yes, you know, struggle hero or you fought and whatever. I think the problem is that we forget that white people today have the option of tapping out, right? So you can sing Jabulani and you can dance, but then you can also remove yourself from the lived experiences of the culture that you're trying. I'm sorry, I'm speaking. From the culture that you're trying to represent. That doesn't make you a bad person. It's just the truth of the situation. And I think in South Africa, this is really what the conversation needs to be about. We need to talk about, why did apartheid end? Why did colonialism end? It didn't end because people's perspectives and behavior changed. It ended because it was expensive. It ended because white people couldn't travel anymore. It ended because they couldn't go and play sport. Because entertainment for white people was over. Therefore, they needed to bring equality. That's not, we need to be honest. We must be honest about this. So for me, when we want to have this conversation, it's easy to say, let's talk about the Rainbow Nation. Of course, you can look forward if your life was never tainted by the experience of apartheid. Of course, you can look forward. It's not the same. And that's the experience of being black, constantly having to reconcile your existence, reconcile your humanity, and demand respect and demand a level of humanity as opposed to what other people just get automatically by being white. That's the reality. You don't have to label it as racism if you don't want to, but it is what it is.
All right. We do also have to think about what whiteness means. Is it about skin color? Mwelezi Ndate, you have said that perhaps we need to target the black elite. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, there was a comment about Oppenheimer and Rupert, but what about Patrice Motsepe? He's a multi-billionaire. So why aren't you mentioning him? What about Cyril Ramaphosa? That's another multi-billionaire in this country. What we're talking here, black liberation. Black liberation, we achieved black liberation in 1994. Okay, you may not like
it's not
it.
felt in this room.
You may think you got nothing out of it, but we have a class of black people here who are multi
as we should have.
Yes,
it is their country. We should have rich black people.
I'm not saying you shouldn't have them.
Oh,
I say we don't have, blacks are not oppressed by anyone in South Africa.
Wow.
If they are, tell me who's oppressing them.
All
if
right.
they are oppressed,
so if we are oppressed, Wanelisa, who is oppressing us?
I think I hear what you're saying because, you know, you writing your books and the political elites in the ANC are not oppressed because you are doing the oppressing at the moment along with white. You are the gatekeeper of whiteness. You represent the gatekeeper of whiteness. Yes. And you sold us out. You sold us out. And to say that you fought for my freedom, you didn't fight for anything because I'm not free at the moment.
I merely said I did what I could. And one other thing, do you think for a second, I as a white person do not agree with both you and you? Have you ever thought that maybe I agree with you?
I don't care. I don't care. At this point in time, white feelings, white opinions don't matter to me because I need the land.
Ladies,
I need the land.
Because
I need us to think about all. I'd love to come to you, Tiens.
It is unacceptable that inequality is so high in our country. A Gini coefficient of 65% is the second highest in the world, if not the highest in the world. The question I think we should ask is, how can that be changed? Now, there are people here saying, give us the land, then that will change. That may be. I want to say, what is the biggest empowering mechanism in any government's hands, in any nation's hands? No, it's education. What I'm perplexed about is that instead of holding a democratically elected government accountable after 22 years, what do we focus on? On 10 million or 10% people in the country.
The 10% who own the majority of the wealth.
Not all of them.
You own the government.
You know, we can say, Seti of the land, I've got the Constitution here. Yes, let's work with the Constitution and the National Development Plan and go forward. We shouldn't. We should hold this government and all the political parties accountable.
What about rich black people?
Yes.
So who mistreat other black people, like Kulubuse Zuma, who's now been forced by the courts to pay his 5,300 workers. What about him?
In South Africa, it happens to be that the majority of white South Africans, just by virtue of their existence and the access to assets and everything that they have, are very much the huge culprits in this conversation.
No, they're not.
It doesn't mean, I'm sorry, it doesn't mean, right? It doesn't mean that there are black people that are doing things that are wrong. But why is that the immediate equal of it in the conversation? Will we then acknowledge that the entire apartheid machinery was also corrupt and that that it was affirmative action for white people?
Yeah. All right, Henny, you've actually documented how white fortune was made. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Chaba, I think firstly, we need to appreciate our country was at war, right? And our country was at war for decades. And the last 10 or 15 years of that war saw all manner of crimes. In order for the apartheid regime to be able to buy weapons, to buy oil, for large corporations to move their cash offshore, they broke all the rules in the book and made a network of people around the world incredibly wealthy out of that process, and people in our country. So I think for us as a nation, again, to move forward, we need a full understanding. For there to be true justice in our country, there has to be truth. And I think when it comes to economic justice, this is a crucial element that must be the focus of us moving forward.
All right, Abraham, you have a very big job. You're responsible for social cohesion at the Department of Arts and Culture. Can you bring everybody together?
I think it's possible. Government has 14 priorities for this medium-term strategic framework period. And the 14th priority of this current government is social cohesion and nation building. And we have a program of action to achieve that.
Wonderful. We're going to leave it at just one of the 14, given our time limitations. Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And we'll be expanding on parts of that when we get to the more conclusive part of this conversation. So when we return, we hear about the good racist, and we talk about the return of apartheid in South Africa. You're watching The Big Debate.
Hi everyone, my name is John and I have a new show, that's why I'm here. It's called The Good Racist. Okay, I can't speak for anyone else in this room. I know everyone's very angry and very cross, but all I know is I was born confused. Because I was born in, I was actually born in Zimbabwe, but let's not discuss that. I swam hard and I'm here now. I was raised in a racist environment. Every rule, every nuance, everything told me that black people were dangerous and incompetent and evil. Then my parents went to work every day and left me alone with one. So the problem is that it doesn't even make sense. If the old people didn't even believe what they were teaching us, how are we supposed to process that? So that's the first thing, I think. And then the other thing we must accept is that racism is something which is definite. It's real, it's there, it's an absolute, and it comes out in sneaky ways. African time. What exactly is this concept of African time? It didn't exist before we came here. There was no African time. Things just happened, okay? Nothing didn't get done. Stuff got done. You never saw Shaka Zulu standing on a hill going, ow, where are these Xhosas? I want to have a battle. Stuff just happened, right? Then we came on 3 ships, okay, and made everyone a slave, and now we want you to be on time. Well, what kind of idiot would you be to arrive on time for your own oppression? Thank you very much.
Welcome back to The Big Debate with me, Masachaba Ndlovu. We're talking about whiteness. We're talking about white privilege. So it's good to have a laugh. That was John Flismus, comedian-in-chief. But now on to the serious stuff. So let's talk about Penny Sparrow. She was used to white beaches, having her own space, without any monkeys around, and so-called human beings to share her beach with. Just like people in Parkhurst or in Bishop Court or Kloof are used to white restaurants. In other words, our cities are still segregated. So let's hear from some people who live far from the white suburbs. Simpiwe from Tembelihle, where there have been many service delivery protests. Simpiwe, you are here. So are there any white people that live in Tembelihle?
No, actually in Tembelihle it's just a big informal settlement where we'll find the poor people who are living in shacks with no electricity, no toilets, even water, because everything that we have, it's the things that we did on our own, like illegal electricity, connecting water, like buying pipes for ourselves to connect water so that we can have access to water. Actually, when we go out, like Sandton, Rosebank, it's like we are in another country when we compare where we are from. Actually, we end up breaking even the law by connecting electricity on our own, and we'll take it from the Indian communities to bring it to informal settlement. People will die each and every day because of the braise that we use when it's winter. Our shacks will burn because we use the candles. We've got signers. Some of people, they don't see in their eyes because of the smoke of the paraffin. So that is how we live.
Do you think it's got something to do with being black and the fact that you're not white?
Yes, it is. Because since I was born, I never saw any informal settlement that I'll be told that whites are staying in this informal settlement. The informal settlements are the thing of blacks. Everywhere where you go, you'll find blacks in those informal settlements.
So how does that make you feel about white people?
I won't blame the whites for whatsoever that happened, because our parents fought for the freedom, thinking that as blacks we'll have our land back, we'll have priorities like on other things, like at schools. We saw the protest of UJs and stuff. The universities were protesting. We thought such things, we won't see those things anymore. I thought because now it's a black government, we'll be like fading our study, but it's not happening also. So both parties are playing part on this thing of racism or in our future.
So, Mwelesi, it is all about race then?
It's not all about race. You know, we have an ANC government. Hold on.
All right. But you said there's been black liberation.
Yes, that's why I'm saying there has been black liberation. Now I'm explaining why I say there has been black liberation. We have the ANC controls the government of South Africa. It controls the parliament of South Africa. It controls the police of South Africa. It controls the army of South Africa. So now my sister here says she wants black liberation. I have been asking her during the interval, she needs to explain to us who is being oppressed by whom and how is she going to liberate
I think Simpiwe has answered that for us.
No, she didn't. She said she's not blaming white people. She didn't say white people put her into the informal settlement. But now you're not dealing with my question.
Sure, no problem. But you asked two questions. Who is being oppressed and who is doing the oppressing? She's oppressed.
By
People
who?
who live in Thembelihle are oppressed.
By who?
Maybe we need to answer that question. Kone?
I think we should look at all the facts. I can assure the gentleman and the lady, unfortunately, that I can assure you there are some white informal settlements today in South Africa.
How many?
Wait.
Okay. How many white people are living in squatter camps?
If you don't like the facts, it's no use to shout. You have to accept that there's a reality. Obviously, in terms of percentages, it's a lesser percentage.
So, for me, an ideal South Africa would be a South Africa where we have white maids, white security guards, white people in informal settlements, and then we have more black people in positions, as more black lawyers, more black accountants, more black people living in decent housing, etc.
All right. Ayabonga, who's doing the oppressing?
Look, I think it's a combination of the historically white entrenched and established interests in South Africa, combined with, of course, this new black elite that Utatu Mbeki is talking about. I mean, if you think about BEE, all it is just crumbs trickling off the white table in service and in perpetuation and in continuation of the ritual.
I just want to say something. The most disempowering, destructive and devastating racism is not personal racism. The penny sparrows can spew as much racist filth as they want to. It doesn't kill anyone. You must address the fact that the ANC left intact, virtually untouched, this, when Malema and them speak about white monopoly capital, it's not a myth. It's a devastating reality in the lives of people.
Yeah.
So, you know, the question of the black elite, it's true they're feeding from the crumbs that fall from the table of white monopoly capital, but what you also need to address is that the intra-racial, meaning within the black population, growing class inequalities has now outstripped the interracial inequalities between black and white. This is it. The Anglo-Americans, all of these people dominate this economy. This jobless bloodbath that Bhavi speaks about is a direct consequence of the fact that this economy, where it's a powerful country, we live in the most powerful city in Africa, Johannesburg, and people are living in shacks. That is the most important racism that's linked to to institutional structural issues that I want to hear more about, and I'm not hearing that. I don't want to talk about the penny sparrows. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much.
Family, this right here is just but an eye-opener to all black folks all over the world. It's time that we create a norm, to discuss about issues that are affecting us, to discuss about racism, discuss about all these prejudices that has always been affecting us over the years. This specific lady starts the conversation by saying she is obsessed with black liberation and the rebuilding of the black humanity. Many times the black folk, when you look at us all over the world from different countries, many times we're deemed to be inferior. Many a times they see that there's nothing good that can come from us. Many a times we do not get equal opportunities when it comes to resources. These are lady in South Africa speaking, but somebody in the US could be experiencing the very same issue. That's why this is just but a call up to just try and empower black people all over the world, that it's time that we are able to articulate ourselves. We are able, to share our grievances and say enough is enough, and it's time that we must be listened to, And this lady said specifically that she's actually obsessed with black liberation and the rebuilding of the black humanity. We live in a society that is very dishonest, with power and brutality that white bodies hold. Many a times the society is obsessed with a lot of dishonesty about the white power. The white supremacists think of nothing but themselves. And there's this white lady, who was asked, are all white people racist? And this is what she had to say. She said, there's no way you'll be a white person in South Africa and fail to be racist. Being born in this society, which is embedded, with a lot of negative stereotypes about these same black people. And she proceeds to say, let's not make that the end of the conversation. I understand that we may be racist, but let's not make that the end of the conversation. Yes, we are racist, but but what can we do about it? Let's not make it the final decision. Then there's this another white woman who says she's in disagreement and said she's not racist, and it's offensive to say that all white people are actually racist. She says it's not true. To make whiteness the enemy is easier than to fight corruption, unemployment, and the World Cup. And black people in the audience did not take it well. And family, the one thing that I want to comment so much about the big debate in South Africa is the fact that they are able to articulate issues that are affecting black people all over the world clearly, without fear of discrimination, without fear of probably a negative feedback. They speak and correct each other right on the debate. Many a times it has always been difficult for us to discuss about these issues. Having to see white people disagree amongst themselves, that just shows us that we are a step closer to finding a solution. One white lady says that they are all racist, then the other lady says no, then gives another information that everyone again is against. She proceeds to say, the black lady now, white people today have the option of tapping out. In South Africa, we need to talk about why did apartheid end? Why did colonialism end? It didn't end because people perspective and behavior changed. It ended because it was expensive. It ended because white people couldn't travel anymore. As blacks, constantly we have to reconcile our existence. And that is very, very bad. we have to reconcile our humanity and demand respect, a level of humanity, as opposed to what people just get automatically by being white. Family, this has always been an issue all over the world. I went further to do more research in regards to the same topic, and here is what I found out. The debate on racism in South Africa and all over the world is a complex and ongoing issue shaped by the country's history and colonialism, apartheid and post-apartheid socio-economic struggles. The discussion often revolves around several key points. Number one is the historical context and the structural racism. Apartheid, which happened between the 1948 to 1994, institutionalized racial segregation and economic disparities. Even after its end, many argue that racial inequalities persist due to historical disadvantages. Then now we have the white privilege and reverse racism. Anytime the black folk is trying to articulate themselves in regards to their rights, when it comes to discrimination and any other form of prejudices, they say that now you're trying to play the race card. You know, they start reversing it. Some believe with South Africans still hold economic power benefiting from historical privileges. Others argue that policies like the Black Economic Empowerment, the BEE, disadvantage white citizens, calling it reverse racism. And you wonder, anywhere in the world, when you go and start speaking about this issue, they'll talk about the race card thing and the reverse racism. Then number three, we have the land reform and economic disparities, where land ownership remains a contentious issue, with most land still in white hands. The government has proposed exploitation without compensation, sparking fears of economic instability. Then we have the affirmative action and its consequences. Policies aimed at correcting past injustices have led to accusations of discrimination against minorities. Then last but not least, we have the rising racial tensions and political exploitation, where political groups use racial narratives to gain support, sometimes fueling division, hate speech, and racially charged incidents continue to spark national debates. So guys, thank you so much for tuning to watch this video. Kindly comment down below. Let me know what you think about this specific debate, and let me know if in your country there are any forms of platforms where people can easily articulate themselves, or rather air out their issues in regards to racism and any other forms of prejudices. Comment down below. Let me know also what you think about this specific video. Like this video so that it can be recommended to other YouTube users, and I'll be so grateful. Last but not least, kindly do consider subscribing to the channel. We are currently on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and we cannot do it without your support, guys. Kindly subscribe. See you all in my next episode. Goodbye for now.